This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by the Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. My name is Aaron Zamzo. I'm a fire lieutenant in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm also a writer for Lexipol and Fire Rescue One. With me on this podcast is always the newly promoted, as I like to say. I self-promoted you to Colonel. That's the editor-in-chief, the mind and the muscle behind this podcast, Janelle Fusquette. Janelle, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk to your guy, Joe.
My guy, Joe. Our guest today is, I call him Uncle Joe. I call him my guy, Joe. It's Joe Minogue. He works with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, but he's much more than that. He is, I like to call him the glue of the fire service, because if you know somebody on a department, Joe probably knows somebody from that department and can probably connect you. So this is going to be great because Joe's got great stories, knows a lot of people, and this kind of put me under your wing a little bit in some of these conferences when we met. So I'm happy to have you here, Joe. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Great talking to and seeing both of you as well.
Well, I didn't know, I met you at a couple conferences a couple years ago again, and we just hit it off. We started talking about different things in the fire service and family and friends. And then, when I said, hey, I got to get you on the podcast, and Janelle sends over your bio, man, you have really been serving not only, the community, but us in the fire service for a long time. You've served currently as a National Fallen Firefighters Foundation liaison to FDNY, and you're on the Phoenix Society for Burn Survivors. You're a commander for NFF's Memorial Weekend. You're a lead advocate for New York State in Nassau and Suffolk counties, and served there as the stair climb coordinator. You've emceed, I don't know how many different stair climbs events. You've also are actually a retired lieutenant from FDNY. I should have started there, where you were on engine 289. You worked on ladder 153, engine 229. And then after September 11th, you became one of the FDNY buglers. And then shortly after that, you were promoted to the commanding officer for the FDNY ceremonial unit. And you currently still serve with Bethpage Fire Department in New York. You've been a firefighter there, a captain, lieutenant, training officer, and even a publicly elected New York State Fire Commissioner for them. The list goes on and on and on. And it's funny because, again, I've known you now for 4 or 5 years, and we have some really great mutual friends, but I never knew the story of Joe Minogue is actually related to Kylie Minogue.
Yes, it was pretty good. So, and my stays with the FDNY also included a short time in ladder 138, right next to 289. And I was a lieutenant in both engine 290 and ladder 103 once I got promoted. But the story about Kylie Minogue was I had a detail coming into the firehouse in Corona, and the senior firefighter over in the other firehouse calls me up and says, "Hey, there's a guy coming over. He thinks you're related to Kylie Minogue. So could you play it up?" I'm like, yeah, sure. So this kid comes into the firehouse, and I'm on a cell phone talking to my wife and kids at home, and he's following me around. So I'm like, "Henny, I gotta go. Hang up the phone. He goes, "Hey, buddy, are you Joe Minogue?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm Joe Minogue." He goes, "Are you related to Kylie Minogue?" And I do a whole big act, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?" I go, "Well," and this is all fictitious. This is all made up.
Yeah. You had no idea at this point, but you're just going with a firehouse prank.
Yeah, I'm going with the flow. So I said, "Look, when she made it big the first time, she dissed the whole entire family. She thought she was better than everybody else. So now that she has this other hit, she's taken, the heart that, she left and trying to make it up to people, taking people on vacations, cruises, resorts all over the place. And she's coming to my house in 2 weeks to have barbecue in my backyard because I didn't want to go away and everything else like that. So he goes, oh, can I come? Can I come? I go, yeah, you can come. So at towards the end of the tour, I let him off. I told him, like, I go, buddy, I'm not related to Kylie Minogue. I mean, she's a great person and all that, but I'm not related. Fast forward, I go to Ireland to find family, and I wind up meeting some family. We meet in the Patumna Hotel, and they tell me that I am, in fact, related to Kylie Minogue, even though distantly, and that doesn't get me anything, not even a cup of coffee. It's a great story to share with people, and we had a good time meeting family in Ireland and all that stuff. So maybe one day I'll get through Ancestry.com and 23andMe and figure that all out. So
Yeah, if anybody has a direct connect to Kylie Minogue on here, let's try to make that happen and get Uncle Joe and Kylie Minogue to finally meet. And I'm sure someone's out there listening, going, "You got this decorated, FDNY, lieutenant, and all the stories of FDNY, and then I lead with Kylie Minogue." But there is some madness and some reasoning behind it, because you are so well connected, and you make and connect people and have very solid relationships. And I think that's why you and I gravitated towards each other and connected right away, just because you're very personable, and you do know somebody. You knew somebody over here, and somebody over there. How did that has that always been embedded in you, or where does that come from?
I don't know where it came from, because when I was in school, probably till I was 15, I was quiet. I was the wallflower. I thought nobody knew who I was, and then somebody invited me to a cafeteria table, and that's a whole nother story. And my personality blossomed, and then everything I do um, is just built onto that story. My first time public speaking, I had just gone to McCord Air Force Base for the Air Force Fire Department. And one of the guys that was in the fire extinguisher shop said, "Hey, kid, you're going to come with me, and we're going to talk about fire extinguishers at the base auditorium." So here I am, brand new to the Air Force, had my first stripe on, and I have to talk to, I don't know, 700, 800 people about fire extinguishers. So that was my first time actually being out talking to people. Nerve wracking. But after that,
Yeah.
everything started getting a little more comfortable.
What got you started in the fire service?
Friend of mine had joined the Sound Beach Volunteer Fire Department as a junior firefighter, and he says, "Hey, why don't you come up and do that?" And I didn't do the Boy Scout route, Cub Scouts. I didn't do that. So I said, "Hey, why not, Charlie? If I can come up and see what it's all about, I'll come on up." I liked the fact that they were training, they were laughing, they were having a good time. I was like, wow, this lifestyle could be pretty good. So I was 14 years old, and that's what got me into it. And that's what, when I wanted to do something in my life, I said, you know what? Let me join the Air Force Fire Service. So I went to the recruiter. He says, you can do anything you want. Your ASVAB scores are at the max. You can do anything you want. Why are you going to do a firefighter? I go, that's my dream. It's a dream. It's about helping people and giving back. And that's what I saw from my mentors in the fire department. Tommy Heemsoth. I'm going to miss somebody. Charlie Kalachi, God rest him. But those are the people that said, "Hey, we're here to help people, and we're going to have fun, and it's family." So it was
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, sometimes dysfunctional, but we always got crazy uncles and crazy aunts and crazy people in a family, right?
Yes.
So then you got up through the Air Force, joined FDNY right after that, and then,
No, I actually
or
ran.
was there a spot between?
No, I ran companies before that. So I worked at Shoreham Nuclear Power Plant as a security officer, and had a great time there. Left there, ran companies in the city, and then I said that was too many hours. I had wanted to have a life, so you can't work 168 hours a week. That type of deal. You get home and the phone rings and, hey, we got a problem. It's like, okay, well, I hired you to take care of that. That's why you're a supervisor. Why are you calling me? So, and then I found Secret Service. I found the civil service and became a police officer. And at
Oh,
the
that's right.
same time, yeah, took the fire department test. Took a long time to get to the fire department. Had a great time as a police officer. I did domestic violence there for a while, and in that, helping people. I just ran into somebody recently that said they remembered me. I'm like, oh, how do you remember me from all that time ago? You were in the paper, in a Chinese newspaper. I did an article for domestic violence to reach that community. And the guy goes, I remember reading it. Like, wow, that was pretty interesting. 20 something years ago, somebody remembers an article in a Chinese newspaper that I wrote. So it's good.
Wow. That's called making an impact, right? And that's kind of what I see, whenever you meet people, and that's obviously what I remember, and still whenever I talk to you, I'm like, this is a guy who has left a trail of positivity. And then when you finally got involved with the fire service and the fire department, FDNY, let's go to September 11th. So at that time, do you remember? You obviously will remember where you are, and then how did you get to be on the bugler there?
So September 11th, before I was happy being part of the FDNY. I thought it was a great opportunity. I thought it was a great opportunity to kind of slow down my role and everything. Just become a firefighter, learn the job, be the best I can for the people that I'm going into fire with or emergency with, and just learn it. Like I said, great mentors along the way. So September 11th happened. We don't have to go over all the details of that, but we lost 343 FDNY members, and not just firefighters, but FDNY members. That family that we are, and the 23 and 37, police officers from the Port Authority and NYPD. So I went to a funeral on the 14th, I believe, and there was no bugler. So I went up to the guys running the funeral. I said, "Hey, where's the bugler?" Says, "Oh, he's at another event, another funeral." So, well, I played a trumpet. Like, do you have it with you? They were all excited. It's like, no, I don't have it with me. I didn't know I was going to need it. I said, well, you're now part of it. So that's pretty much how I got in. Jules Pontecuevo, who was the fire department's bugler, him and I connected, and we started like, hey, you're going to go here, you're going to go here. You got Long Island and Queens and stuff like that. I'll take care of Brooklyn and Manhattan and stuff. And then we were so busy, as everybody knows. So we got Bobby Sachi. He came in and played, and we had the NYPD buglers come in. Sometimes we would have a kid from high school at some funerals playing taps and stuff like that. So we tried to cover everything the best we could. Some funerals we did for a person more than once because they found different parts of somebody. So we would do 2 funerals for somebody. And I think the most we did that I remember was maybe 3 for a person. It wasn't as as big as a main funeral, but it was still paying respect to the person and the family. So
How many funerals did you play?
I don't know, couple hundred, couple
Yeah.
hundred.
Yeah. I think at one point you said 100. You told me like 130 something when you sat down one day and counted. Something
Yeah,
like that. I thought, but
yeah. It's several hundred plus the memorials and all that stuff. So it's in the
yeah.
hundreds. What they're doing now is probably past what I did, but it was pretty significant. So, and I still
Was
play
that
once in a while, so it's fun. Not
was
fun.
that part of your healing process after 9/11?
Actually, I think it um, kept me sane a bit. Seeing people also was kind of tough in the fact that it's a 35-second song. And every time I played for somebody, I tried to make it personal for that person. Even though I didn't know them, I tried not to listen to the eulogies because the eulogies would mess me up. They would mess me up. I remember Chief Stack's funeral. I had to go inside to use the bathroom, and I got caught in the vestibule listening to the eulogies. And then I went outside and like, how am I going to play after listening to the man's life and the legacy he left behind? So I So I would go into the corner, not listen to anything, do my practice, and then kind of get the vibe of what was going on. And everybody had their own song from me. Everybody had their own song. No two songs, even though it was 35 seconds, was the same. At the end, we always, pretty much always had the helicopter fly over. So I tried to time with the NYPD or Suffolk County or Nassau County officer that was calling in the helicopter to time my last notes with the wash of the helicopter. So they blended, and the helicopter carried the last note away. That was pretty much, what I wanted to do. I wanted to give that person, like everybody else in the ceremonial unit and in the fire department, they wanted to give the best they could to the families to give respect to their loved one. So that was good. I think playing the trumpet so much, because you practice at home for hours and making sure that you had it right, that I think pushing all that air out of my lungs, I actually think helped me physically recover. Even though I got sick later on, I think physically blowing all that air and everything out of my lungs helped me physically recover.
Help your
That's
lungs get
fascinating.
stronger. Yeah.
Yeah. And whatever particles I had in there, from the cleanup. I wasn't there the day that the buildings collapsed, but I think what I did breathe in, trying to find people, I think all that dust got in. I think playing the trumpet cleared it out. So at least that's what I'm gonna stay with. So
Yeah. Well, I remember Chief Salka telling a story that he was down there as well as almost all of you were for weeks. And he said one night it was a clear night and he wasn't taking pictures of the mountain or anything. He just, the moon, something struck him, and he had a camera, and he said he just wanted to take a picture of a certain area, and he took the picture and he looked at the camera, and it was gray. And he's like, there's something wrong with this camera, right? And he cleaned off the lenses and took it again. And what it was when the flash went off, all of those particles in the air refracted the light, and that nothing would go through. And and I remember him saying he kind of felt at that point, he's like, there's gonna, we're breathing in all this stuff for weeks and months, and obviously we're now finding out about how that affected everything. So there could be some actual validity to clearing your lungs out, and your mind, right? Like mentally going through and having that's part of the recovery as well. And I got to tell you, I played drums for our pipes and drums band, and I played it anywhere from like 15 to 20 services. And your mindset, for someone who's listening, like, well, how can you have that mindset? Is you have a job to do for that family, and that is your right mindset, right? I'm going to play this to the best of my knowledge, and you don't want to get distracted from that in a way, right? I mean, that's
Right.
kind of what you were thinking
Yeah.
going through. And so when you're saying that, I'm like, I can relate. Was there ever a time where it did get to you then? Like, for me, there's been a couple moments afterwards. It could be hours. You're just driving in the car and you start to understand the gravity of that.
I have to say, every one of them. I mean, there were some funerals that I played that I knew the person personally. That was tough. Oriole Palmer's funeral. Like I said, I stayed outside. So Oriole Palmer's funeral, I'm outside and I'm talking to a bunch of people outside, and Oriole's daughter started speaking.
Mm.
So I said, all right, this is my cue to leave. So I stepped back, I went underneath the tree, and I looked at the church, and everybody was leaning. It was almost like the wind was pushing everybody to the church. Everybody had to listen to what she had to say. And I think, again, impactful to who Oriole Palmer was, the legacy he left as a leader that he gave to his daughter, that she could get up to the microphone inside and give a eulogy for her father. That's heartfelt. So that was tough. So what I started doing, and I'm not even sure when, but I would find a place to play for different reasons, kind of out of the limelight, to make it sound good. Sometimes we get a spot, we could play it off a wall of a church or a building next to you, so it would you get the bounce. But every time I got myself set, I found a place to leave without anybody seeing me, to just walk away. Because now that it was me. Like I said, I played for everybody personally. It was a personal song, so my heart was into playing for them. I
Mhm.
didn't want anybody to get into my head and ask me, "Hey, you know, what are you doing? What are you thinking?" I didn't want that. I got caught a couple of times where people saw me coming down a side street or something. It's like, "Hey, that was really beautiful. How do you do it? How do you play taps? It's a short song. Everybody knows the song. How do you do it?" Like, "Oh, thank you." And I walk away. I was respectful and polite, but just kind of walk away because it's tough. It's really tough. Billy Krukowski's funeral was one of those that was hard to play. Um, Billy came to me in probate school right after December 18th, when we lost Cavalieri, Bohan, and Bob in Brooklyn. And he goes, "Joe, I went home and um, had a conversation with my wife about quitting, because he saw it, his wife saw how easy it was to lose your life, you know." And I said, "Billy," I go, you know, it's a conversation you have to have, and stuff like that. But um, look at what the fire service is. Look at the camaraderie that we all pull together. Even though we're brand new firefighters, look what we're part of. So later on, he came back to me and he said, "I want to thank you for having a conversation, because this is the best job in the world." So when Billy was killed that day, it was something I had to finish up with him. So,
Mm. Yeah, you're right. It is the best job in the world.
yeah.
And we give and we give a lot. But I think we get also that camaraderie, that family. And so let's talk about, how did you get then involved in, speaking of giving back? How did the NFFF kind of get involved with FDNY, and where did you fit into that puzzle?
So the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation was tasked by the fire administrator to come to New York on September 11th and help out whatever they could. I had no idea they were there. I was too busy doing all the funerals and taking care of family in the firehouse. Um, and then they had a whistle stop tour. So at this point, I'm running a ceremonial when I really find out who they are, and they want to do some things in New York. And I was tasked with helping them out, coordinating things with Lenny Cola, who is the director for special events. With a dear friend, dear friend, and could not have accomplished half the stuff we did without her, ability to navigate all the things that you have to navigate when you do events. So they came to Lenny. Lenny, tasked me to help them out do their events, and that was the beginning of who I started to see who they were. And then I went to Memorial Weekend down in Emmitsburg as a flag holder, and I saw everything perfect. Like, here's an organization helping people around the country that they don't know, even though they were created by Congress to help, families recover and put their lives back together and all that. These people, they don't know anybody around the country, and they're helping out. Then to find out that there's thousands of volunteers helping put the memorial service together from around the country, helping people they don't know. So it's this family that we just mentioned that it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and tighter, and everybody wants to give back. And that's how I got involved. And then I walked into the command post and I listened to the incident command structure in textbook fashion function. That was unheard of at the time. To watch everybody stay in their lane. You got a problem? give it to logistics. You got this problem, give it to safety. You got that problem. Everybody worked in the sandbox together with, no pat on the backs, no egos involved, and no conflicts. So that's how I got involved, and I wanted to find out more. So when I retired, they said, "Hey, you want to help Danny and Vinny out?" So I started helping out, and then Vinny left, and then Danny left, and then I became the guy. So it's
And
been a passion. That's good.
and you now are the MC at quite a few stair climb events. You're there at a lot of the conferences, but you also help develop a lot of the programming that the NFFF has launched to help keep us safe and try to try to not get us in a fatality situation, obviously, correct? And that's everything from stress first aid, after action reviews, courage to be safe program, leadership accountability. A lot of the programs that are available through NFFF, you had your hands in developing, correct?
Yes, that was fun to do with the whole team. There's so many names that I can bring in, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but Rick Best, who just left as the manager, was spearheading that, for years. So,
Mm-hmm.
it was nice to get together with the advocates, whether it be on a phone call, a conference call, and Zoom as it became popular during COVID, or going to a conference and sitting down in a room with like-minded people and having a conversation. So it was it's a good story. It's evolving. We just finished teaching some classes in the FDNY for 2 days, and that was actually interesting. And we've done it before, but it was nice to come in and take what we've learned nationally from all fire departments and hone it and bring it to the FDNY and have their leadership and from different organizations inside the FDNY to sit and listen. Dispatchers, fire prevention, EMS, and the fire side, and everybody again working together as a family to make it and listen to us and see what we had to offer to give back. So it's nice to go to small fire departments or big fire departments and tell a story and listen to their story. And you and I have talked, and um, one of the magics that I think you have is that you get to listen to people, and you truly do listen to people, and you kind of pay it back. And I think that's what the foundation does as a whole is we listen and we give it back. My role with the FDNY as a liaison, unfortunately, over the last 22 years, the FDNY has learned so many lessons that unfortunately, the unfortunate lessons. But what we have learned, mental health, funerals, public safety officers benefit programs, safety issues, we can bring that from the FDNY and pay it forward, which the FDNY wants to do to the rest of the country. Even the peer program, which we help support, goes around the country and helps people during times of disaster or
Well,
hardship.
and cancer awareness, obviously as well. Like, and it seems like it's FDNY helps NFFF. NFFF takes that information, disseminates out to the country, and then it comes back to New York, like you're just talking about. It's this full circle of support, and the NFFF is kind of in the middle of it, and being that liaison. And that's the one thing I really love about working with people like yourself in that organization is it's not there's not one thing or entity that's bigger. Like FDNY is there to help the rest of the fire service, and as well as the rest of the fire service is trying to take that information and maybe there's something they can give back to FDNY, and everybody listens to each other and everybody
Yeah.
tries to just get better with that information. And I've watched you speak. I've listened to your interactions with people. You're very personable too, and your trainings too isn't not just about you lecturing about leadership. It's you ask the driving questions to a department of 20, and then you get someone who's in a department of 200, and that their conversation spurs change. Really, is what it does, right? Like, and it seems like that you're very passionate about just talking to people and connecting, right? And is that something that you've just developed, like you were saying, over time through through your experiences, or is it something like, you know what, I'm actually good at this, and this is what I'm comfortable doing?
No, I think it's developed. When I was asked to help out with domestic violence in the NYPD, you know, part of that is not just hearing what's going on, but listening. Because sometimes when people come in and they tell you something, you'll hear something that's off. Maybe they're not sharing, they don't want to blame somebody else, or they're kind of adding to a story that they shouldn't embellish. So, 'cause, we want to help everybody in that family, regardless if the person is a victim or considered a perpetrator. There's some hurt on both sides, so you have to listen. You have to you have to open up and be able to do that, and then you have to be able to paraphrase what these people that are hurting. You have to give that back to them so they understand that you're listening. So I think overall, the years of talking to people, I think it's developed quite a bit. I know I'm not perfect. We're not perfect at all on anything we do, but I think that's my ability to listen to people has grown. Victor Stagnaro, I loved when I first met him. He's now the chief executive officer for the
Yep.
foundation.
Yep. Friend of the show. Go
Yeah,
back and listen to that podcast, by the way, if people can.
yeah. So he was just hired by the foundation, and he came to New York. And he's sitting behind the table when we're doing a show with the FDNY. It was their show. We were just supporting it. And he goes, honestly, Joe, I do not know what you do. So he goes, I don't get it. I go, I connect the dots, Victor. That's what I do. I connect the dots because it's not good enough. I have to understand what you do. So the lunch time came out. I think it was lunchtime. And I went out and I started talking to everybody. And everybody's coming up to me and we're talking, we're having great conversations back and forth. Everybody goes back into the auditorium. And Victor comes up to me and goes, I get it now. I get it. I get it. You know, everybody's coming to you, talking to you. You're talking to people. You're finding out people. And I saw you bring people together, physically move somebody to meet somebody else. He goes, I don't know what that was about. It doesn't really matter. The fact that I now get it, watching you talk to people, I'm hooked. So that's that was a good vibe, because you have somebody, 5 minutes earlier say, I don't get what you do, kind of doubting, having you on staff, if you will, as a consultant. That it was pretty easy. I didn't have to sell them, so it was nice. It was good.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
Oh, I was going to say, you have such a knack for connecting the dots and connecting people. And I'm just curious about if you always also had a knack, speaking of a different skill set, of project management, because there's the people connection part of it, but then there's the logistics side of running all these stair climb events and serving as a liaison. There's so much that goes into that from a logistical standpoint. Has that always been a skill that you had, or did you have to really work on that?
When you have a good team of people, it's good. It's really nice to trust that. When I took over the ceremonial unit, like I said, I was a junior lieutenant. I called my senior team members in, Joe LaPointe, Mark Guerra, Craig Slovino, Mickey May, Mike Capasso. If I left anybody out, I'm sorry. And we're in the conference room at the Fire Academy. I said, okay, John Burns, he's stepping down. He's retiring. And he asked me to take the helm. So I have to build a team. And right now, I have pretty much an empty box. no instructions on how to do anything. So I'm going to rely on everybody. And they, I think it was Mickey May put his hand up and says, yeah, we do funerals. And then everybody else echoed that. I go, so what about all the other stuff? Like, Joe, we do funerals. That's all we know is funerals, September 11th. I go, but you guys are my team. You have 30 years, you have 25 years, you have 26 years. So it's about listening to them, being guided by them. I had my vision um, of what to do. I wanted to help the new evolution of the FDNY. I wanted to um, make sure that this opportunity, as tragic as it is, um, was not in vain, and that we had to help the command staff change the FDNY. So one of my first things I said, all right, well, we're going to learn from everybody. Um, we are going to um, build a ceremonial unit to where we can handle losing a whole company at the same time. It's not something that we wanted to do. And years later, after I retired, to the credit of Joe Lapointe and the team, uh, they took care of, I think, 6 funerals in 1 week, all from different firehouses, which made it more complicated. But listen to the team, and that's it. So that's the big part. Listen to your team and just learn and put that in your box. So when the situation comes up, boom, you have a funeral. We went to New Jersey, did a funeral, and went to the town council and said, well, how many people we're going to expect in 2 days? Said 25,000 people.
Wow.
You're going to have 25,000 people in our town? Yeah. And he goes to Chief Starr. There's a Mike Riley who passed away. And you go to Chief Starr, who's the police department there, and says, can we handle that? He goes, Joe and I already talked about that on the phone. We had a meeting before we came here. We're set. He told me what to expect, and we're good. And so it's relying on the different elements and just, again, listening to what everybody's saying.
Yeah. Joe, what drives you to serve so much? I mean, you were just telling a story off camera about how you flew to Las Vegas to help a friend who's starting a new charity, and every time I talk to you, you're either babysitting for your daughter or your grandkids, or you're flying to go surprise a mutual friend of us when he gets promoted. I mean, where does that drive to just serve those around you come from?
Well, I think we're here on this earth for a short time. We don't know how long that's going to be. Hopefully it's a long time so I can go to my grandson's wedding and all that. But you're here for a short time. It's easier to give back than it is to ask for something. So if you give it back without asking for anything in return, it just works. You talked about that earlier. So I was in Colorado. I was speaking at a stair climb they had, and it dawned on me that the stair climbs were started by a bunch of firefighters from Colorado to help the FDNY in our time of need. Didn't want anything in return. They just wanted to help the FDNY, and that they still believe that focus, which I love them for tremendously. So as I'm sitting there getting ready to speak, I said, wow, the FDNY peers came here for the shooting that was in Aurora, Colorado. So they did something that boomeranged and came back and helped them. So that's what drives me, is the fact that you can give back to somebody else, and it might help somebody else. The boomerang may not come back to you, but it's going to go to somebody else in their time of need. So that's what really drives me, is just to give back. Because like I said, you're here for a short time, make the best of it. It's easier to smile, right, than it is to frown. That type of attitude, right?
I think it takes less muscle to smile than it does to frown, I think. And there's actually, I was reading, there's actually some research that says that you have a better, like a hormonal response when you smile. Like it actually, there's some chemicals that go along with it. But you're right. We are here for a very short time, and it's about being as impactful as you can be. I remember I did a stair climb at one of the large conferences, and we actually did a show on it. And for those that are listening, if you've never done one, get yourself in shape and go do one. They are very moving, and Joe was one of the big reasons for that. And do you remember this, by the way? So what happens is, you climb for someone that has, a line of duty death, given their life, a firefighter. And that particular stair climb was, we were climbing for a lot of the members lost on 9/11. And I didn't have, any real connection to who I chose. And I remember right before you went on stage, I said, I'm going to climb. I wasn't going to, but Janelle made me do it for the podcast. And I said, do you know who this gentleman is? And you looked at it and you said, yeah, I played at his funeral. And I still to this day, I'm just like, oh, like, okay, I'm finishing this thing. There's no reason why why I can't. This is just the least amount of things I could do. I remember I gave that to you. And then, but that event, people build each other up, and it's the essence of what you're about, really. And it's the essence of what the good side of the fire service is about. Along with telling everybody to do a stair climb and take care of each other. I mean, what other things do you want this next generation of the fire service to really focus on that you think would really make the biggest difference in their careers?
So this year, when I was getting focused for the national stair climb that we had at the U.S. Tennis Center in Flushing, I was talking to Joan York, and Joan, she lost her husband on September 11th, and she had recently told me that she had a grandchild. So I started thinking about how many generations are affected by a single loss of life. So it's not for everybody that passed away on 9/11, but you think about the thousands of people that were killed that day, the thousands of people, that there are some families that are 5 deep into the effect of a line of duty death. So you have, if you have grandparents alive, that's one generation. Then you have your parents. Then you have your siblings, if you have some, or your cousins, another generation. Then you have your kids and your nieces and nephews. And then you have their offspring. That's 5 generations that are affected by one line of duty death. And so in there, you need to pay homage not only to someone that died in the line of duty, which is great if you can do that. But think about all the heroes that we have in our own lives. Think about the moms, the dads, the aunts and uncles. That are your heroes. Look at the people that made you who you are today, right? So if they passed away, whether it be cancer or a car accident or whatever, come and do a stair climb. Use that as the vehicle to pay homage to what they left you, right? Like I said, we're here for a short time. So do the best you can to pay it forward. And you're given to a cause that I don't think we tell our story as first responders well enough, because we go on a rig, whether it's an ambulance, a fire truck, we go out, we do what we have to do to help somebody in the community, and then we go back. Maybe if we're a career firefighter, we clean up the equipment and we get ready for the next call. If we're a volunteer, we head back, we get the rig ready for the next call, and we go home to our families. But somebody in there is training you, to teach you, to give it back to somebody else without looking at yourself like, hey, pat myself on the back, I just saved somebody's life. That's not what we're all about as first responders. So that's the drive. I think that's what maybe what you're getting at. Maybe I lost it.
Well, I think you're saying just be selfish, be selfless.
Yeah.
The job is about something more than you. Like you're saying, give back what you know, take from, the other generations, learn and pass it on. And just, I guess that's the essence of what we're about on this podcast is just be better. Try to get better every single day. You're never going to be perfect. Joe, you're pretty darn close, but as long as you're trying to move forward, make progress, and then give that back, right? Like, um, my dad always said, whatever you do, just try to leave the place a little bit better than when you came there. And, I'm not very smart, but I can talk to people who are. And, and that's one of the great things that I see just by hanging out with you is that, hey, I want you to meet this guy because this guy can help you with this. And this guy knows this guy. And in case you're over here and really, that because you listen to people and because you care and you're not trying to get anything back. And I think that's a genuine lesson. I had Chris, Chief Warren, we've mentioned him a couple of times. I've had great conversations because of we introduced it, but we were saying things about not just the younger generation, but I think we all need to do something and at least once a shift and put our damn phones down and just talk to each other, talk to your crew. And talk to the people that you're trying to serve. Just try to work on listening because it is a skill that's maybe we're not very good at anymore. And I think that's kind of what you're saying. If you're selfless, you listen. If you're selfless, you give back, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that I love for my stair climb, the national stair climb, is that the EMS Academy has their probies come and they hold American flags, a 3x5 American flag on a pole, and they line the course. I let the instructor that runs the school set it all up. I tell him like what the course is. He takes the vision and it executes it. But at the beginning or the end, this year was at the end, I was able to speak to the probies. They're now part of the FDNY family. They're part of the fire service. And I think when you come to a stair climb, you get to see what the fire service is. So in my story, telling them you're part of the FDNY family, you're part of the first responder family. Anywhere you go, if you tell somebody you're part of the FDNY, there's a smile that comes onto their face. And I know if you tell somebody that you're part of the fire service anywhere, a smile comes to their face. They may not know who you are, but they know who you represent. You represent something good. And then when you come to stair climbs and there's civilians there, because the stair climbs are not just for first responders, it's the civilians that come. And if you can do 2 steps, that's all you can do. It's appreciated. If you can do this whole stair climb, it's appreciated. If you can do a walk around, or if you can just come there to support, it's appreciated. But to connect the fire service with our communities that we serve, and many of the people that are coming to the climb, they may never meet a first responder firsthand, and hopefully they never will, in an emergency role. But there's a bond that's there, is created. We have a food gathering after my climb, and everybody gets together and talks. And that's what you were talking about, put the phone down and have a conversation. Let's connect the communities together. My climb, I had little pumpkins and the kids were, painting the pumpkins and do a little face painting. That brought other people in to see what's going on. This is what firefighters are all about. Yeah. we're so much more than just going out the door. Oh, you and I have talked about some firefighters are lawyers, some are doctors. Some they have lives that you wouldn't believe, especially for volunteers. They're volunteers. They have a job or 2, or maybe even 3 jobs, taking care of their family, but they're giving it back. So I think coming to a stair climb, connecting the dots, whether it be just inside your own belief system or connecting the dots with somebody you didn't know and then paying it forward, it's really nice. My goal with my climb is to connect the fire service families with the rest of the fire service. So they know that mom and dad, they go out to work, may not come back for 24 hours. So what's their life all about? So when they bring their families and stuff and they meet people from different firehouses, EMS stations and all that, they get to see what the dots are, the dot. Steve Jobs, in one of his books, it says one of his legacies was, if I can find a book, I'd show it to you, but was connecting the dots. So he has a lot of quotes. Some resonate with people. And my friend Marilyn, she bought me a Christmas present and said, I had to give you this book because it's about connecting the dots. So read it. She highlighted it and everything else. So I keep it near to my desk so I can reflect back on that once in a while. So,
Well, that's the theme too that we get with all of our guests. It's we read something, talk to somebody, continually just try to develop yourself, and I think that's contagious in this day and age, especially like you said, if people just put their phones down and talk, you can make a pretty drastic impact and positive impact on people. And I think this is a great way to transition. You talked about books that you're reading. We like to do something called hot seat questions where we talk about just maybe there might be a little random, there might be a little bit of planning behind what they are, but we try to dig a little bit more into our guests, who they are personally. I always like to say Janelle's mom has a part of this because she'll come up with questions. Some of our prior guests, maybe Victor has a question that we might use, to ask you. So these are more quicker questions that we use just to dig in and see who Joe Minogue is. And I'm going to have Janelle start it off. Are you ready? As first the question.
Should I be afraid? Should I be afraid?
I don't think you're afraid of much when it comes to stuff like this. So no, shouldn't be afraid.
All right, rock and roll. Let's go.
There you go.
All right, Joe. Well, this question is all mine. You talked about at the stair climbs, you don't have to know someone in particular. You can have your climb for our hero, climb for someone in your life that you want to honor. I want to know, who are your heroes?
Who are my heroes? I have quite a few. My dad, definitely, he's on the top. Rick Bruno, lieutenant in 289. He was the guy I wanted to be when I became a boss. He was the guy that was calm and cool and collected on every single emergency. Every emergency. And that's who I wanted to be. I wanted to, when I got on the radio, when I got on the fireground scene, I wanted to be Rick. And I hope I came close to who Rick is. I thank him. He gave me a shout out on another podcast. It's pretty funny. Ben West from Tennessee shot me a picture that was in the podcast. Like, how'd you get that picture? But I had no hair. It was like, just came out of the academy and stuff like that. So it was pretty. That's Rick Bruno that did that. Those are the two people that are up front. Ron Sarnacki, he just left the foundation. Well, he's leaving the foundation at the end of the year as chief executive officer in that title. But he's a guy that sees things and takes it all in or acts on it. We were going to a meeting. We were in Penn Station, and we were going to take I believe the C train. And there's a woman with a stroller. He left us, went over, said, "Ma'am, do you need help getting the stroller up the steps?" And thank you, and helped her up the steps with the stroller. I think a lot of people would have just kept walking and stayed in conversation with us. When he came back to us, he did not lose that conversation at all. When he came to New York, Danny McDonough was still around. And Danny goes, "Ron's going to ask you some questions. So just give him straight answers." I go, "So I have to, sugarcoat?" He goes, "No, don't pull any punches, straight answers." So we sat down at night and preparing for the next meeting with the FDNY. And I think Ron had probably 20, 25 questions for me. He goes, "Okay, I'm good." So the next day, we're in the commissioner's office in the conference room. And Ron said everything I said to him. Did not paraphrase it, but use all of my words to talk to the commissioner. It's like, wow, if I can be, again, half of that person and live my life that way to give back without, you know, a self thrown in there, then I think I won. And I think Ron has done that over the 22 years that he's with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. I've witnessed it. I've seen it. I know everybody else has. Um, so yeah, that's another one that's right up there. So you know, and I don't want to get into Santa Claus and Easter Bunny and all those. That brings good smiles to people, but you know, it doesn't. It's not based in reality.
Well, sometimes that's okay, but we'll say that for another podcast.
Right.
You know, talking about like heroes, let's talk about you. And you know, you don't like to talk about yourself a lot. I know that because you're more about connecting everybody else. But for you personally, what's one of your proudest accomplishments?
My kids, my three daughters. I think that giving back, part of the ceremonial unit. I think that making a difference in everybody else's life, even if they don't know who we are and they'll never see us again. Being part of the foundation again, changing some things, helping the foundation move uh, people into a spot where they could and did get public safety officers benefits after 9/11. When I had a number in my head that when that happened, I was gonna, you know, go off to the sunset and you know whatever life was gonna take me. And somebody said, "Hey, you got what you wanted." I'm like, "Yeah, isn't it great?" And they went, "Now what are you gonna do?" So it's like, okay, I'll have to think about that. And so here I am, still, you know, helping out the foundation and giving it back. Um, one that, and you mentioned Chris. So I guess he's not my accomplishment, but my belief in him is, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
When he first went to Lexington Fire, he was a firefighter in Versailles, Kentucky, and he went to Lexington. I told him, I go, Chief, you're going to be a chief one day. He goes, don't call me chief. I go, come on, you're going to be a chief one day. He goes, no, I'm a firefighter. I'm happy being a firefighter. So as you said before, I think we were recording. I was at Chris's promotion when he was made lieutenant. I was at his promotion when he was made captain and got to pin him. When he made major, I had to be there because I've watched him. So they just changed the title of major to chief.
Yep.
And he calls me up. So I'll go back step. So when he was just joining Lexington, I said, "You're going to be a chief one day." "No, I won't. No, I won't." I said, "I'll bet you a paycheck." He goes, "I can take that bet." We shook hands and I said, "Hey, do you get paid every 2 weeks or once a month?" It was once a month. I go, "Still the deal? Still the deal." So to see him progress and all his successes, building the dive team there, you know, being a chief in busy places, and when he was in squad, busy play, all of it, you know, just watching him and um, see him get married and be happy, and to see the kids grow up and be very strong kids. That's having belief in him. That's accomplishment, you know.
Mhm.
You know.
Yeah. And this is Chief Chris Warren from Lexington, and we'll maybe try to have him on the show as well because he's one of the most interesting people in the fire service you've never heard of. He's got some interesting stories. He's got um, uh, some rescues under his belt that he doesn't like to talk about, but we're gonna maybe try to put him on the spot. But you know, I think it's your belief in people. Again, it goes back to believing in people.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, but that Chris, to see him, you know, grow so much, it's kind of good, you know. So yeah.
Well, speaking of the most interesting people in the world, You're pretty interesting, as we've discovered throughout this show, and you're quite a Renaissance man. In fact, you write poetry. You found poetry. I'm curious how that came into your life and if you have a favorite poet.
Um, have a favorite? No, I like a little bit of everybody because everybody give you something. Um, I don't know exactly how I started writing, but I think it was to fill a void that I was missing, creative side. You could write memos all you want, they're short little things, boom. But there needs to be something more in there. So I started writing poetry. Some I would wake up in the middle of the night and scribe something down on a napkin or a folder and throw it in my locker and then finish it the next day. Uh, so I just write. I went to Montana last year. I'm sorry, this year, beginning of this year, and I told myself I was going to write something there. So I journaled a little bit, but I didn't write a poem. So on the flight back home, I wrote a poem, and I just happened to meet somebody a couple of months later from Montana. So I said, "Can I share a poem with you?" So I sent him the poem, and he goes, "Oh my God, I know exactly where you were." So for me, being able to write relives certain things, other things inspires me to do other things, other ones I have no idea where it comes from. Um, but um, it all touches somebody. My cousin was going through a tough time, and we're on the phone, and I said, you're so good. You're so good at who you are as a person. You give so much to everybody else, and everybody respects you. So I go, I'm going to do something for you right now. So as we're talking on the phone, I wrote her. It was 140 characters at the time you could write on the phone. So I wrote her stanzas of a poem, and then I go, now you have a poem that's about you. It's about you. It's called Wild Horses. And the essence is that who you are as a person, everybody else sees. And in their chaos of life, who you are as a confident, bold person, everybody sees, and you bring comfort to that. So in her essence brings calm to the wild horses. And I've taken that poem and I've sent it to some fire service families when they were struggling. They had asked for it. I didn't just offer it to send it to them. They had somebody had contacted me and said, "Hey, do you mind if I share?" Like, yeah, 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 yeah. So it was sent out, and um, they wrote back, said, "You know what? I didn't see myself that way. Thank you for pointing it out." So inspiration comes from different places, but a lot of it's about romance and stuff like that. And people go, "You're a firefighter. Where does romance come from?" I go, "Oh, firefighters are romantic too. Come on, right, Aaron?"
About certain things, we do have a softer side, you know, we're so, and I think, you know what, though, we're not very good at embracing that. So, and maybe that's the way you can bring yours out, right? In a way, there's therapy in everything that you can do, I think,
Yes,
and it's different for everybody.
it
And,
is.
and maybe the poetry is one of the ways, like you said, you needed something to bring out your creativity, and here it is. And there's a book coming on the poetry, correct?
Yeah, it's on its way. First version was put together, and we have to modify it a little bit. But um, I was told to keep it short, so we're not going to put thousands in it. But I think we'll have probably about 100 poems, maybe, and then some other words and thoughts in there as well. So my family said it was okay in the thoughts that I wrote in there to include that, because they're part of my journey through life. So they said, "Okay, Dad, whatever you want to do." So thank you, sweetheart, and
Yeah.
we're good. So,
Well, true Renaissance man. One final question for you, though. How are you? It's just Joe, as a Renaissance man, as a father, as a liaison for the fire service. How are you working to get better every day, every shift?
um, so talk to people. You know, take time to yourself. Sleep. Right now, I'm looking at sleep, how it affects us positively and negatively. and talking to a couple of professors that are out there to help us, and to see how that's going to guide myself and other people that it touches. The fact that as first responders, or actually probably the culture as a whole, the American culture, we don't get enough sleep,
Mhm.
and it's so detrimental. And then sometimes we augment that that healing that we try to do with alcohol, and so and sleep and alcohol, they're not a good mix for our mental health. So if I can put a program together and present it with some good presenters, and get that message delivered out to the first responder community, and then they can take nuggets out of that and take it to their house and talk to their families about it. I'm not talking about taking a kid sitting down in front of the TV or a slide projector and say, hey, this is what I learned, but just have a nice comfortable conversation and get off the phone, talk to your family, and say, well, we're gonna start going to bed earlier. We're gonna take our phones, gonna put our phones down 2 hours before bed. We're gonna turn the television off. We're either gonna talk to each other or read something, and just kind of slow your brain down, and you get some sleep. And you're gonna over time you're gonna wind up being a better person and give it back to somebody else on the other side.
Well, thank you so much for being a guest. We could have dove into so many other topics, but I think the essence of who you are is service and giving back and trying to be at your best so you can give back is really what we're about on Better Every Shift. And I'm so glad and happy and thankful that you were here to stop by and give us some of that wisdom and some of your stories. For those of you that are listening to this podcast, remember that you can watch us on the Fire Rescue One YouTube page. You can also email us, bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. We'd ask, hey, please rate, review the show. If you think we're onto something or on something, if you have questions for our guests, we can relay them onto them. You can also listen to other podcasts by going to firerescue1.com. We have a Better Every Shift page there where you can see well over 50 of our podcasts now. And we had mentioned some of those guests earlier through this particular episode as well. Again, thank you so much, Joel, for being here. Thanks for your service. Thanks for your dedication. Your words of wisdom is we're only here for a short time. So give back, make an impact. And most importantly, make sure that you learn something, do something, and share something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for listening, everybody.